to Behind the Ballots, and we have a lot to pick up on from where we left off.
Well,
And
first off, I
also,
think we should start this episode, Mikhail. Happy 30th birthday. They
oh, yes, of course.
our main host just hit the big three. He's going to be collecting Social Security any day now. They happy birthday, Mikhail. I hope it feels good.
Soon. No, yeah, definitely does feel good to be 30. Looking forward to these next 10 years and getting to 40, realistically.
Hopefully,
So,
man. Fingers crossed.
yeah, yeah, no, definitely. It's going to be a fun time, fun time. But yeah, we're going to get right into it. We have a lot of updates from what's going on globally. There's actually been a lot more news going on in the global sector. Canada has jumped back into the sphere, and CIA Director Daniel Radcliffe actually took over a secret trip over to Russia that we're going to talk about as well. And then we're going to move over to the domestic side, focusing a little bit on the Supreme Court's ruling regarding mail in ballots and the injunctions that have started to take shape. And then we are also going to touch on what is going on with the food recalls and the Argentinian beef.
Oh,
And that
yeah.
is such a debacle.
And
And
that's
then
in the southern
lastly,
states, too. That's in the
yeah,
Republican states. Imagine that. Imagine you're like, oh, what? So we bought beef from Argentina and now we can't even buy it because it's contaminated.
yeah.
Why are we not supporting beef in our own country?
Yeah, it's absolutely insane, and then we'll round it off with flock cameras and data centers and the surveillance state, which is very much shaping up more fast and more quickly than we could ever imagine. It's basically here already in various forms, and the are just the latest phase in all of this. But with that said, getting started with this new operation that was named Operation Economic Outclass. And on August 21st, 24th, sorry, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced Operation Economic Outcast at President Trump's direction. It is a secondary sanctions campaign meant to cut every remaining economic lifeline to the Iranian regime after months of war, U.S. naval blockade, and disruptions of the Strait of Hormuz. The Treasury Secretary says it mapped Iran's oil smuggling and sanctions and evasion networks. And the first wave sanctioned more than 60 entities, individuals, and vessels worldwide. New sectorial demands expand secondary sanctions risk in 5 areas, such as digital assets, technology, gold, aviation, and shipping. Bessett has called it an economic D-Day, kind of like what we were touching on before that terrible storm had hit and cut me off completely, and said Iran faces a choice between total isolation or a path back to the global economy on U.S. terms. And the
You know,
stated operational goal is to squeeze revenue that funds the IRGC and the regime and to force Iran to reopen Hormuz and stop proxy attacks. And I'm kind of like on the same mind track that you're getting to, Muhammad. It's kind of insane to think that
yeah, I
we
laugh at
have
this.
any right to state that, we want to get them back to the global economy
The
on
fact that we think
our
we have any of
terms.
that leverage, right? I'm like, one, we're the
Yeah.
ones who kick them out of the global. Okay, so the global economy. I want to add this. The global economy has been really splitting in the West versus East. You have the Western countries that are really focused on the U.S. dollar, and then you have the Eastern countries that are focused more on BRICS. They're actually thinking about replacing India in BRICS, I believe, with Pakistan, I think. But
Makes sense.
I mean, India is an interesting country. I mean, compared to China, you have the similar populations, completely different levels of production and more, which is funny because the Indian population is fairly smart. They're one of the smarter populations in the entire world.
Yeah.
But to the point, though, is that it's funny that the United States diplomats think that offering this kind of global economic integration for Iran is some kind of deal for them. They've been out of the Western system for decades now. And they've been getting more and more benefits operating with people like Russia and China than they have been with trying to cater to the United States' every whim and having to deal with every single sanction. And I mean, it's just been recently announced actually that Russia is investing in nuclear energy in Iran, making multiple nuclear power
Yeah.
plants, investing in and using Russian engineers and more to help create these power plants. And when the United States actually told Russia, hey, well, we're threatening Iran with this, this Operation Economic Outcast, we're going to threaten you the same thing if you work with Iran on this. And Russia said, based off what they've done, the numbers they've calculated and they've accounted for, they've said that the economic impact of Operation Economic Outcast would be minimal and that it would not hurt them at all
Yeah.
as a country. And it's because these
Yeah.
countries
Very
are not
minimal.
relying on the United States dollar at all anymore. I mean,
No.
I've mentioned this multiple times because it really does get under my skin. That stat regarding what the most common trade partner in the entire world. It was us in 2000. Now it's China overwhelmingly in the current day and age. So the more we do these, oh, if you don't agree with us, listen to us, we're gonna push you away. But if you do agree with us and listen to what we want, we'll let you in. These people would rather say, I'd rather not deal with all these ultimatums and sanctions and deals like these like if you do
Yeah.
this, well, we'll let you do this. I'd rather
And
not deal
also
with
in the
that
terms of
and deal
just
with
waiting
somebody
out.
who's going to look at me like a mutual partner, which is what China's doing and Russia's doing with
Yeah.
Iran.
Yeah, and also in terms of just waiting out the Trump administration, which is
Yeah,
exactly what, now Canada is now shifting towards. But
that's
what
what
you were touching
everybody's
on
shifting
earlier,
towards, dude.
yeah, I mean,
Everybody.
it's he's basically up until the midterms. I guess he will be president, but he's even said himself he's only going to govern once he becomes a lame duck, either through pardons or executive orders. So, and those don't last at all. And other world leaders understand our government structures and how they work, and kind of what Mohammed was talking about with Russia. Is exactly what CIA Ratcliffe was going to Moscow for. He was going there to pressure Russia to apply additional pressure to Iran to open up the Strait of Hormuz, because that is the main goal now, even though the strait was very much open and flowing before this disastrous war. So, with that failed attempt from Ratcliffe, because as Mohammed stated, Russia, they declined any offer that we put on the table, and understand that the global stage is very much shifting out of the United States' favor, all because of this war and what this war has shown. I mean, it's shown that we can't defeat a embattled Iran as much as we like to state, and it shows that Iran of all countries is able to withstand not just the economic sanctions, but also the levels on bombardment, not just from us, but also from Israel. So, with us showing our hand continuously on our operations and our patterns and flight patterns and all of these things that we use, every other country that's an adversary is all looking at this and taking in this information. That's exactly what China is doing. That's exactly what Russia is doing. And they see the advantage, and they are taking full hard stake in it. Just as mom was saying, like Russia and Iran, they're getting together to build nuclear reactors. Like all of these things are taking shape because of how such a fiasco this war in Iran is turning, and how much of our belly we are truly showing. And with Canada, I mean, right above. It's now turning into a worsening economic war. The Ontario Premier Doug Ford said everything is on the table if the trade war worsens, including cutting electricity exports that serve about 1.5 million U.S. homes and businesses, and restricting critical minerals, specifically high grade nickel and uranium refined in Ontario. Grid operators say a cutoff under normal weather would be a price shock more than immediate blackout. An extreme cold is going to be the reliability risk, whether or not there is an immediate blackout. And Alberta has pushed back on using oil as a weapon because that would also hammer Canadian producers. And, on August 25th, my birthday, Canada announced a dollar for dollar, rate for rate counter tariffs on about $20 billion of US goods, matching the new US 50% tariffs that took effect earlier after talks collapsed, which it seems in almost every situation, talks always collapse with this administration. And
It
Canadian
blows.
tariffs.
I just
Mhm.
want to add to interject. It blows my mind how it's crazy how powerful the media and the government can be if you agree with the overall what the government wants says. For example, okay, I know this is off to the side, but this is just a good example. Back in the 90s during the Bosnian War, there was people who would Yugoslavia was a very diverse place. Now you'll see how I correlate this to American
Yeah.
MAGA. And during that time was a very diverse place. So Serbians grew up with Muslim neighbors and vice versa, and it was all in peace for decades. And then the Serbians started invading Yugoslavia, well, the Chetniks, I should say. And a big reason why was
Yeah.
because the government the government of Serbia was taken over by a man who was very fascist, Slobodan Milosevic. But this is the kicker: he then took the government power, and then they would have daily radio broadcasts where they would say all these things that the other people were doing, what the Muslims were doing, what the Croatians were doing. They were all lies. They were all lies. They're like, the Croatians are scalping your family members. The Muslims are raping your family. It was all lies, but it was just built to get these people up and motivated for it. And then this
Hmm.
one older woman who lived with a Muslim neighbor was for decades was asked like, well, you said yourself like you got along well with your Muslim neighbors. So why do you think that at the end of the day, Muslims should suffer at the hands of what happened? She was like, well, I believe the government when they said that they were, abusing and violating us as well. So I was like, well, I'd rather them than us. And seeing stuff like this where people really thought for so long that Trump's tariffs were like the right thing, it's a much more minor and not as serious of a life issue because, well, the first one is life or death. This one is just economics, which can result in life and death, though. And it bothers me just seeing how much, if you even knew the slightest thing about economics, you could argue, okay, yeah, the host country foots the bill, the company foots the bill, the taxpayer foots the bill. Saying that you got to pay 30% tax on something is going to make it more expensive. It's just plain and simple.
Hmm.
Like if I told you that
Yeah.
your income tax was going to be 30% instead of 15, you're going to be thinking, well, I'm going to have less money now. Things are going to be harder to pay for. So when people are like, oh, well, there's a 30% tariff now on all these imported goods, it doesn't, it's a tax. Taxes are not economically beneficial unless it's set in a progressive manner, and this is not a progressive tax. We are putting taxes on
No.
food. We're putting taxes on clothing. We're putting taxes on literally, as you mentioned right here. So back to the Canada United States situation. Canada duties of 15, 25, and 15% roughly hit roughly 700 products starting September 8th. Now, Canada is going to enforce these dollar rate for rate counter tariffs on the United States. 50% tariffs on steel, aluminum, furniture, and clothing. 25% on cheese, appliances, and seafood. 15% on electronics and tools. Now, that brings me back to what I just said. 50% tariff on clothing. Clothing.
Yeah, man.
It's an example of like, do you really think clothing's not going to be impacted by
Furniture
a
too.
50% tax? Do you really think this is somehow going to help the United States? Are you that convinced or persuaded enough that you think, oh, well, 50% tariffs, this is going to be good for the American economy? No, it's not. It's a 50% tax. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Well, I mean, it's his negotiating tactics. He wants to throw these
I
tariffs to try
hate
to
that
make
fat
people
cow,
scared,
dude.
to try to force them to whatever deal that he's hanging in front of them, and it's not working.
It hasn't
Nothing
ever
is
worked.
ever going to be as easy as Argentina, and he is learning that the hard way completely. I mean, even on top of, like, yes, we do have, taking out oil from, Argentina, but the fact that it's not even the it's not even at the level to that you can even be used right away. So the fact that he just thinks that everything was just going to be rolled over and everyone would just bend to his whim, will, and all of his loudmouth negotiating tactics and threatening tactics, it's not working at all. And American
No,
people
people are sick
are
of it,
going to
and
be
they know
hurting.
that he's basically on the way out, whether it's regarding being a lame duck in Congress. Because don't get me wrong, like these politicians may not be American politicians, but they're the leaders of their government. They know how the the government style works in countries
Yeah, oh
such
yeah.
as America. They know that hey, the Democrats are coming in. Trump's going to lose a lot of his influence and power. We can deal with the Democrats a lot easier than we can deal with Trump. Clearly, I mean, like we even mentioned earlier, that's what Iran literally outright said they're waiting for is waiting for the Trump admin to completely leave
Oh
office.
yeah, they're sticking to their guns on their what they want out of the peace deal, and they're not changing from their demands because they know Donald Trump is trying to find a way out, and that's when he's using Pakistan as that sort of back channel lifeline to try to get some proposal out of Iran, but nothing's going to come out of Iran outside of their demands. And that Strait of Hormuz is going to continue to be closed. And that combines with, like, continuing what Muhammad was saying with all of the rising costs with these stupid tariffs. You also have about only, like, what, 41 days of strategic oil left of refinery supply, which is the thinnest within 4 to 5 decades. And this is an inventory ratio, not a complete countdown to empty takes, which is a good point for our audience to understand. But the strategic petroleum reserve fell by another 3.7 million barrels to a total of 289.7 million barrels, which is its lowest level since 1982, and is now sinking towards its operational minimal after repeated emergency releases tied to the Hormuz disruption. And Iranian officials have said they can squeeze much harder, and that threat is leverage, and there is not a confirmed new cutoff schedule. But as we, continue this nonsensical war with our trading partners with Canada, that are hitting these very things that are hurting Americans' pockets, we are now also seeing a squeeze with Iran from this whole Strait of Hormuz issue. And also, there's going to be no end to it because our, commander in chief, negotiator in chief, is not able to effectively make a deal after blundering this whole entire war and being dumb enough to start it to begin with.
He's too
But
focused on Natalie.
yeah, yeah, way too focused on Natalie. And that's actually a good pivot because we can now turn to our more domestic side of news. Not going to be covering Natalie Hart, but that whole situation is just so odd.
I could not.
It's just so odd.
I I I could not
Like I
personally do
just
anything physically with someone, no matter how. Uh,
like the
I
letters, the
look at Trump and I get
following,
like
the
physically repulsed.
like
Clearly,
it's
though,
just
this woman's like delusionally in love with him,
yeah,
and
delusionally in love with him. It's
delusionally.
bad.
Don't get me wrong.
It's
I'm
so
like, if you
bad.
want to be head over the heels, writing love letters to your significant other, feel free. But when it's between a 35-year-old staffer and the 84-year-old married president, it's a bit different. It's a bit different
Yeah.
than two people consensually not married in love with each other are doing it. They
Yeah, they're apparently saying during that the grand, like the race that they had, I think it was over the weekend or whatever. I think it was like in the capital, like not in the capital, but in DC, I believe. There was reports of people getting video footage, no audio, but just video footage of what looked like Melania and Trump arguing. And then you see Melania kind of get up and leave, and then Natalie Harp like literally comes right over Trump's shoulder on his left hand side. I'm like, I wonder if they were arguing about her presence being there because I'm sure any married woman would, to be honest. But as with that story goes, we are focusing on the Supreme Court mail in ballots and the United States Postal Service, two different court tracks. So there are two different Supreme Court tracks, and they should not collapse all into one. And this is very important. So you have in late June, the court ruled 5-4 that states may count mail ballots that arrive after Election Day if they were postmarked by Election Day. Justice Barrett wrote to the majority with Chief Justice Roberts and the three liberal judges. That was a loss for Trump's effort to kill grace periods. About 30 states have some version of that practice. Separately, Trump's executive order tries to restrict who gets mail ballots, which would have DHS build a citizenship list and have the United States Postal Service require a recipient list and unique barcodes on ballot envelopes. On Monday, the Supreme Court lifted a lower court injunction that had blocked implementation in the states that sued, which were about 32 states, that were saying the injury claims were premature, basically meaning that these 23 states were too early to enact their lawsuits. And on Wednesday, the judge vacated her nationwide block after that ruling, while saying plaintiffs can still challenge the final rule. So the administration can move forward with it for now, and the merits are not settled. And midterm timing is pretty tight. With I'm pretty sure ballots starting to be cast very soon, and there has been new news that there is a scheduled rehearing for this September 3rd. So, with that hearing, I'm sure there's going to be new information that comes out from all of this. But once again, it is the administration's attempt to subvert your rights to vote. They have failed with the Saved Act time and time again. I even saw a Instagram post stating how all the Democrats, is what they like to call them now, all voted against it. But it hates to mention how Republicans actually voted against it. And that's actually the reasoning why it truly didn't pass. But they'll just leave that part out for you. But this is once again another attack on your rights and accessibility to vote. And we are going to be paying very close attention to all of this. Mohammed, what do you have for this?
I want to really see what Trump actually tries to do during the election midterm season. Now, if I recall, I may be wrong on this, but the Supreme Court didn't necessarily rule whether or not it was the what Trump did is enforce with the executive order was legal or not. Just that the lawsuit from the states don't stand for. I have to
Hmm.
ask my lawyer friend. She's much smarter regarding legal than I am, and she's into politics as well. But essentially, the Supreme Court just outright said, well, we're not saying whether or not this is legal. We're just determining whether or not this is going to be prevented from going forward in this point in time. And they're like, well,
Yes.
because of what we're
Yep.
seeing, we're going to allow it to go forward in this point in time.
Exactly. That's basically the basis of kind of what's happened today, and then you'll have that September 3rd rehearing of all of this. So
Yeah.
what comes from that, you will either see action from either side, the administration, or from other advocates that are fighting for this mail in ballot measure to be officially blocked.
And I'm wondering what
Um,
I'm curious about to see is how the conservative justices will line up on this. Because, in my opinion, even if this is something that is more democratic by political ideology, meaning a larger federal government, I don't think the liberal justices will rule for Trump doing this because they're anti-Trump. Simple as that. But when it comes to the conservative justices, the federal government enforcing some rules regarding voting on
mhm.
states is definitely a huge no go zone. I'd expect like a 6-3, seven
No,
two.
definitely a huge.
Yeah, I'd expect
No,
like a
definitely
6-3,
huge.
7-2 against Trump to be voted, but you never know.
Yeah, I mean, even
Clarence
just thinking
Thomas,
about
you
the
know, is going to
logistics of
vote
it.
for in promotion of Trump, which I know that man has to be smart to get to where he is after where he started. I don't understand his political ideology. I don't.
Yeah, no, neither do I, honestly.
And I
Neither
need to,
do
but I'm
I.
like, I don't get how you can be so blatantly. I mean, in the same way. in the same way the liberal justices are going against their technical. I mean, you can speak to these people and learn their specific ideologies, but if we're just putting things under an umbrella and a compass, an American political compass, going further to the left, larger federal government. Going further to the right, smaller federal government. Now you can get fascism and communism involved with that's both federal government on the deep end of the spectrum, but we're not going extreme here.
Yeah.
And so if we're going with the liberal justices, they're going against their ideology technically because they just dislike Trump. So it's easy to say and believe like, maybe Clarence is going against his political ideology because he likes Trump. So it's like, even though this is a move that forces the federal government to have more power over the states for something that's as important as voting, where it's to voting, founding fathers really emphasized, I really do see Clarence being like, I will still vote for this because of the person who's putting it up, and I support the person who's putting it up.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that, honestly.
And that's the frustrating
Yep, I would
part.
agree
I'm
with
like,
that.
well, we want the
It's very
justices to
frustrating.
vote just based off what they believe. Like, honestly, they some of
I
my
mean, Justice
favorite
Jackson has
justices.
called them out on it multiple times when it came to a few of the rulings that they released.
Yeah, I'll just say there's a few of them.
What was the redistricting ruling she hammered him on, comparing that to, I think it was the affirmative action ruling as well. So yeah, I mean, Justice Jackson is definitely in various ways called out her colleagues in a professional justice manner.
Because it's like,
But
if you're going to be
it's
claim
time.
to
It
be,
needs to be. It needs to happen. I
if you're
mean,
going to
these
claim to be a
individuals are
conservative, how
just.
are you not going to support these state powers over federal powers? That's exactly what conservatism is at its core in American politics: is state
Yeah.
rights.
Yeah, it literally is, and it's just frustrating how far we're just moving towards ideological justices and far from what justices on that bench were meant to be and also serve.
Yeah, I mean, I
Hopefully
agree.
we can get
Conservatism,
like
in my opinion, like even of 25 years ago, the conservatism of 25 years ago and like liberalism of 25 years ago, like democratism of 25 years
mhm.
ago, completely different then than what they are now in
Yeah,
American
yeah,
spectrum.
completely. And
And we either need to just accept the fact that these political ideologies will change over time, or we could just come up with a more specific term for this branch of conservatism and liberalism. I mean, and that's why exactly why neocon exists, actually.
yeah, realistically, neoliberal,
Yeah,
neocon.
that's
I mean,
exactly
that's
why they
basically how you
exist.
can kind of put
Yeah.
most of those justices in a way you can fit them in that category for a lot of the conservative justices.
A lot of
Um,
conservatives in general of today are neocons. Lindsey Graham was a neo. Anybody who
mhm.
votes for these forever wars are neocons because this is
Oh
a
yeah,
huge
across the board.
expenditure on the federal government's behalf that does not benefit the United States, that forces us on an international scale. None of that is conservatism. None of that. Conservatism is
No, it's
about
really not.
isolationism for a large scale, about proper spending, about budgeting. And I think that seeing that 25% of our debt has been under one president, and we've had 44
Mhm.
presidents, 47 actually, but considering that
I
two of
think I
them have
did the
been
numbers.
repeats, it'd
It's
be
like
45
I think it's like 11.1 billion he's responsible for.
trillion. Trillion.
It's sorry, not billion, trillion.
I
Yeah,
know
eleven point
trillion
one
just
trillion.
doesn't feel real. It just doesn't feel
That
real.
he's responsible for. Obama and Biden are both up there with about 8, but you have to understand Obama had the '08 financial crisis. Um, Biden was recovering from COVID. Not saying it's an excuse, but when you start looking at Donald Trump, you're kind of like, what
Well, it's
really
his
happened
excuse.
outside of he had COVID? I think what the about a year and a half left in his presidency before when then Biden took over, if I'm not mistaken. Or I actually could be pretty wrong on that. I'm
They
just not too
COVID
sure.
kicked in Trump's ending term. Trump was the one who got the vaccines out. He was Operation Warp Speed, and he got the first set of COVID checks out. The Joe Biden got out the second and third COVID checks and put out and him and Trump kind of segued together the Better Business, not the Better Business Bureau, the SBA, the Small Business Association, and the loans that were debt tax forgiven.
Right. I thought
Like I
and
said, I'll
what's
admit
happening at the end of his term. Like he doesn't have like
Trump
a
first term. I'll say this again. Trump first term was not bad. Like, I didn't vote for the guy. I would not vote for the guy. I didn't vote for any, but actually, no, I did vote for in Trump Hillary. No, I didn't. I did not vote for Trump in Trump Hillary. I was registered to vote in my hometown. I tried to vote in my college. They
Yeah,
but
I voted
Trump,
while I was in
I wasn't gonna
college.
vote for Hillary. I was gonna vote third party. Hillary is a word that I should not say on the podcast. But she's a Zionist pig, I guess is a word that two words I can say on the podcast. Hillary is a Zionist pig. A lying Zionist pig. But to the point though, Trump first term wasn't bad. Like I worked in taxes at that time period, and the bills that he passed were honestly economically beneficial. Did they increase the debt a little bit? Yeah. Did they benefit the working class though? That's the key part. Did they benefit the working class? Yeah. The standard deduction got raised by quite a bit. The tax rates got cut by about 3%. While he cut corporate tax rate more, and I disagree with that, I'm of the idea that you should cut working class taxes and increase corporate taxes massively.
Yeah.
That's just the difference in ideology amongst us. But overall though, I'm for tax cuts. I'm always for tax cuts. And I know a big part of what the plan is by the U.S. government is, I mean, JD Vance even commented on this. And we criticized it in the last episode, I believe, where JD Vance said that he wants the United States dollar to no longer be the global reserve currency because it would weaken the dollar, therefore allowing you to buy more
Yeah.
goods with it. Because that's actually a strategy that many countries use. Is they literally say, well, if our currency is easier to use, people would be more willing to do business with us because it's easier. Like Argentina, for example, $1 is 1,500 Argentina pesos. So if someone from Argentina for whatever reason is trying to order American goods, XYZ, they're going to be hard pressed because our currency is so much more powerful than theirs. If ours is weaker, they'd be more open and easier to be getting our crap at the end products that we put out. Now,
Hmm. Yeah.
to bring this back though is that the Russians have also criticized the Americans for trying to do this or possibly doing this. Is the idea was we have to back this up. Our vice president has promoted this. Federal other foreign governments have criticized us for trying to do this. And not only that, but our own president has said that he wants assets to get larger in price because those who own assets will get more rich.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know nor understand, assets go up in price when the dollar goes down in value. Say like an asset, like you're like, all right, a stock stays the same value that entire year, doesn't change value. If the dollar gets 10% weaker, that stock's going to go up 10% just because the dollar got weaker 10%. And even if the stock didn't do anything, even if nobody's mentality bet changed. So point being is we can easily the federal government can easily weaken the dollar. That's what the Federal Reserve is for. I mean, 25% of the money printed has been printed in the last 6 years, and that's one reason why you've seen the dollar get so weak. So they've been trying to weaken the dollar so they can more easily pay off the debt that we have, because so much of the money that we spend on an annual basis is on interest to the American people and the foreign governments. The weaker the dollar is, the less our debt is worth. And so it's been an issue where that's been ongoing, where it's been a battle of, well, do we want to weaken the dollar? And while the dollar is getting weaker, and we are in this issue where we have so many economic problems going on. The interest is getting higher, mortgages are getting higher, the rates for everything are getting higher, everything's getting more expensive, inflation's going up, the economy is stagnating a bit, and stagflation is the worst. So to bring this all back to the mail-in ballots, I know this is quite a rant. To bring this all back to the mail-in ballots, there's been a lot of issues surrounding the Trump's popularity, what he's been doing, what the Republican Party has been doing, what they've been touting him more. And Trump has been losing a lot of support. I really think it's clear that he's trying to minimize the damage that's going to be done in the midterms because he knows the Democrats are going to win. I mean, that's why he even said, like, oh, I don't care how the midterms go. I'm just going to executive order everything.
Yeah, I think he even reposted something on True Social, just talking about uh how screwed is the right word to use.
Yeah.
The Republicans are going to be in the midterms, and
Yeah.
it's
And that's a
very
good way
much
of
so
putting it, at
because this
least. The
war
Republicans are going to
is not
lose
ending
quite a bit of
anytime soon.
seats. Like my home
Yeah, they're
district,
gonna lose a lot of seats. He's gonna get impeached again, which he's very much worried about. And who knows even if he starts pissing off more Republicans, that they even convict him as well.
I
I
think they
mean,
will.
I don't see that
Oh,
happening,
I want to be careful about
but
that when I say I think they will. I think there's a
who
chance they
knows?
will. I think there's a chance they
Yeah, I mean,
will
yeah, who knows?
because there's multiple senators in Congress who he's already pissed off. And I think that if they realize the wind is blowing against him, I think they'd be cool with fine with an impeachment and putting in Vance, because Vance is much more of a pragmatic conservative compared to Trump, who I don't even know if I'd call Trump a conservative. I'd call Trump just an oligarchical opportunist. That's really about it. He doesn't really have any political views unless they benefit
It's
him
like
in some kind of way.
he's a rhino. He's
Yeah.
a he's a rhino,
Yeah,
Republican
that's what
in
I'm saying. Like
hiding.
an oligarchical opportunist. Like he says he's a Republican, but he's not. He ran for Republicans because it's an easier party to run on. Like you run on patriotism and cut in like helping the working class, you're gonna get that vote. As long as you've got some
Right.
charisma, honestly, as long as you've got some charisma, you can easily become the front runner for either party. But the Democrats want to see a little bit more certain things compared to Republicans. Republicans, you can do the same gung ho the last 50, 60 years. It'll work. Patriotism and
Yeah. Yeah.
and fiscal conservatism. Like, yeah, I wanna pay less taxes. I want someone who actually cares and loves America, and it's understandable. But the formula is already laid out. It's not that difficult to understand the formula when the Democratic fan base has been voter base has been changing consistently. I mean, heck, look at what's been going on the last 5 years. This massive change against Israel. You've seen people like Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, literally high-ranking members of the Democratic Party, thinking and publicly saying, "I can't believe this is happening. I disagree with how much the party's going against Israel. This is such a major ideological point of the Democratic Party." And the conservatives have not dealt with that kind of change at all in the last 20, 30, 40 years. It's been a fairly smooth. I mean, you would think that I think Trump MAGA
No, their last
dying
change was from Bush to
Trump.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think I was gonna say I think this era of MAGA conservatism is gonna be their their version of what's been happening with the Democrats. I think they're gonna be like, listen, we don't even agree with what this guy's saying for the most part. He's not popular. He's losing support. He's a lame
Yeah,
duck
they're gonna
now.
call it a phase and try to strip themselves of it, but it's gonna be the Democrats' job to, hold their feet to the fire. Like we've said in previous episodes, we know that, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Joe Kent, Tucker Carlson are all looking to revive a new, true conservative party. So it'll be interesting to see what comes from that and when challenges to the mainstream conservative MAGA movement it really does quake in between that. Really, if it sees that that new party is now the split in between the conservatives and MAGA, that now that new party will engulf the true conservatives and then isolate MAGA to be their own thing, kind of like how Democrats were trying to make DSA their own thing. But on Democrat side, DSA is actually getting very good steam and very good wins.
Yeah.
But with
DSA is
all of
getting a
that,
lot of
yeah,
steam. Good for them. Like I would
yeah,
consider myself DSA if it wasn't for some of their, like I said, I don't really believe in bigger government. I don't. And that's like a core part of socialism is a bigger overraking federal government. But Medicare for all, higher taxes on corporations and the rich, things like that I agree on. I mean, this is a situation where someone would have to be pragmatic, where it's like, well, I agree on a lot of things what these people represent, and I'm willing to work on them with that. But there's other areas where I'd be willing to work with other people on, and you don't see that a lot of days in Congress, which is an issue.
no, you truly don't see that in many ways,
So many
and
votes are just along party lines. It's bothersome until you get something for Israel, and then it's like 335 to 100.
yeah, literally though. And just want to real quickly finish up. We did touch on it with the Argentinian beef, but it's important to note that with that meat was actually sent to China before, and they rejected it. But Donald Trump, when he was on Air Force One, he actually was like, I can't announce who I made to deal with, because I mean, not everyone, most people knew that Argentina was this country that we were making to deal with, and that this situation with China did happen. So, my biggest recommendation to everyone is to not eat beef within the next 90 to almost 100 days. I've already told my girlfriend we will not be buying it or eating it, because this is just outrageous. The recalls have been at some of the highest levels that I've seen, and with Trump bringing in this imported beef at low discounts, this is hurting ranchers. So this is once again Trump turning his back on a class of voters that he made promises to. The ranchers are now hurting. The farmers have been hurting or continue to hurt. Blue collar workers are hurting. White collar workers are hurting. Students are hurting every single voting population that he's made a promise for, besides the 1% and the billionaires, have been, basically having a lot of good wins left and right compared to the overall masses. And on top of all of this, I mean, Muhammad, what do you have for that before I get to the flock cameras and the surveillance state?
I think it's funny. That's all I have to add. I think it's funny. They that we're so the only I remember I like argued with a friend about this about like our like South American presence and why we're doing the things that we're doing, and I was like, a lot of it is just for to help countries that are trying to get allied with Israel or put countries to ally with Israel. I mean, the moment we took Maduro, Venezuela became pro Israel. Argentina is the other most pro Israel
Yeah,
country in South America. And I think the fact that we're willing to buy literally rotten, spoiled beef from Argentina just to help them out, even though it's a risk to our consumers, is so funny to me. So funny.
it's just damning and more eye opening to how less this administration truly cares about the average American, and more about the bottom dollar and or their interests overseas, aka Israel, and moving this focus more towards flock cameras and surveillance state, because it is getting completely out of hand. You've had, I think it was the CEO of Flock stated that Americans are going to have to compromise their their privacy. And that is a founding notion with being an American. You have your private property. That's the owning and being able to just have a private life,
Yeah.
and they want that completely stripped away. I mean, I've even heard that they have technology that they're able to map out GPS wise your movements within your house,
Real, dude,
with the flock cameras coupled with the new um, G6 internet that's going to start running, as this going to start coming out as well. Partnering those two together is going to massively intensify the surveillance state, to where Big Brother is going to be a laughing stock to what is going to be coming.
and
And
I
I
want to say
am
we're
glad.
picking up the
Yeah,
Israeli method of literally using AI to
yeah.
identify people with cameras and Wi-Fi.
And apparently these cameras have solar panels on them to keep them fully charged. So it's interesting to note that our government will very much so implement green energy initiatives, as long as it has to do with subversing a right. Obviously they have these cameras that have been used in some of the most heinous ways. Officers in multiple cases have been accused of using the system to track romantic partners. There have been reports of a man that picked up $30 in New York, and police officers have been trying to locate him by using flock cameras.
$30.
And yeah, $30 on
$30.
the floor. Yep, $30 on the floor. It's absolutely outrageous, and we are getting towards that. That Skynet apocalyptic reality, Orwellian style reality, and there will be some hearings coming. I know Senator Josh Hawley, who's the chair of the Senate Judiciary Subcommittee on Crime and Counterterrorism, opened a congressional investigation into Flock's collection, retention, and sharing of data, which is going to be key because just like how everything was at the blooming of internet, your data is some of the most important information, and companies will share that left and right just to make money, and that data is your imprint, and they just want to continue to sell that to make as much money and to build a digital imprint of yourself so that they already know what you're going to do before you even do it or think it. And
There's a
it's a sad
Futurama
sight to see.
episode about something like that, and it makes me laugh just to think about how a cartoon. I mean, there's been so many sci-fi dystopians that have tracked on and touched on subjects such as this, like a full-on surveillance state, that I am a little bit scared to live in the time frame where it's actually becoming possible.
Yeah, I'm very scared too. And it's kind of like, who would have thought with AI only really being like prominent. I mean, I remember using it when I worked at the state house, and that was maybe like 6 years, six, seven, no, probably 6 years ago. And it's kind of like how far it's already came. I can't imagine what it's going to be like within the next 10, 15 years, and how more dangerous and how less human benefit it's truly going to be. I think we're moving
I
too far
I
away
need the
from that.
bubble to crash, not for me to get into the stock market cheap, but just so these AI tracking, these cameras and all that can crash into the ground and not have an economic benefit. That's why.
No, that would be nice, honestly, because it's getting insane. The data centers are using all of our water, all of our land, while Flock and AI are tracking us left and right.
I
And we thought these were going to be tools for the better, but they are the
I
complete
wouldn't
opposite.
care if data centers were using up energy if we were investing in energy infrastructure as a country, but we're not.
Yeah, it
It's like
has
if
to
we were
be.
making more
Yeah,
energy for these companies because they need energy, then be okay, then that's not going to affect energy prices. We're making more to accommodate for the demand. But no, the supply is staying the
yeah, and I think it
same.
was the state Michigan that was doing. I think it was Michigan. I think it was the state of Michigan. They are taking the revenues from their data centers and going to try to remove the state income tax by
That's not a
doing
bad
that.
idea.
No, I think it's either state income tax or property tax. One of the
That's not
two.
a bad idea. It
One
should
and
be
two.
the
I'm like,
income tax. It
I'm like,
should be the
those
income
are the
tax.
steps we should be taking instead
That's
of just
progressive tax.
outright.
You put the tax
Yeah, I
on the
mean that's
rich, and you let and you give
yeah,
something
that's how
beneficial
it
to the
should
working
be.
class.
And instead of just letting them build left and right on every single open land that's out there, there needs to be a beneficial human tie to this. They're using up fresh water and salt water across the nation that are being built up and fast tracked before communities even have the time to protest against them. And I actually did see that Donald Trump is removing and prohibiting the ability for communities to protest when it comes to the air quality hearings for these data centers. So it's the levels of protests are now also being blocked because of this expansive and massive push of data centers and the surveillance state. But I will forever, forever be against it until it has a human beneficial tie. And with that and all that we have spoken about today, that's what we want to leave you here with today, that the surveillance state is on the rise and there is going to be more to come.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I do your part as a mayor, as citizens of the freest country in the world to defend yourselves from the surveillance state. Do your part.
Yes, continue to do your part and continue to tune in to our podcast. And we greatly appreciate all of our listeners, all of our individuals that download our episodes, and all of our subscribers. Keep looking beyond the headlines and behind the ballot. My name is Mikhail Jenkins, and good night, everyone.
It is Muhammad Alec also signing off. God bless you all. God bless America, and have a great night, everyone.